The war between Russia and Ukraine has escalated sharply at sea and in the air. Kyiv says it struck Russian naval and oil targets, including a cruise missile carrier and multiple Shadow Fleet tankers, as both sides launched hundreds of drones. At least 5 people were killed across both countries. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv's forces targeted a Russian vessel capable of carrying cruise missiles at the Primorsk port in Russia. Zelensky also said that Ukraine hit 3 Russian Shadow Fleet tankers, 1 near Primorsk and 2 more close to Novorossiysk on the Black Sea. He shared footage purportedly showing a naval drone approaching one of the Shadow Fleet vessels. However, Moscow has not fully confirmed the extent of the damage. Ukrainian officials say 3 people were killed in Russian attacks, including 2 in Odessa and 1 in Kherson. Russian authorities say a 75-year-old man was killed in the Moscow region. In Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia, local officials reported the killing of a 15-year-old boy. Kyiv says Russia fired 268 drones and 1 ballistic missile overnight. Moscow says Ukraine responded with 334 drones. Both sides deny targeting civilians. But the war's human cost continues to rise after more than 4 years. Ukraine's strikes are increasingly focused on Russia's billion-dollar energy network, particularly its so-called Shadow Fleet, used to move sanctioned oil to global markets. Since late 2025, Ukraine has publicly claimed multiple operations against shadow tankers, including vessels near the Black Sea, Mediterranean routes, and now at least 3 more in this latest offensive. Russian oil remains a critical source of war funding. By targeting tankers, ports, and export logistics, Ukraine is seeking to not just military pressure, but also economic strain on the Kremlin's war machine. And joining us live from Washington, D.C. is Edward P. Joseph. He's a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot and foreign policy analyst. Mr. Joseph, great to see you again, and thank you very much for your time. Looks like Ukraine is employing Trump's tactics, I may say, in Iran, by attacking Russian ships and taking the battle to the sea. What could possibly backfire for Ukraine and cause serious repercussions in this unending war?
Eric, likewise, very good to be with you and your viewers. And Ukraine is taking the steps that it needs to take to defend itself, and successfully, I should add, defend itself against this continuing Russian aggression since February of 2022. What we've seen is some quite interesting developments. In addition to the ones that you mentioned, those seaborne attacks, Ukraine has managed to hit Russian oil infrastructure, and this damages and diminishes the benefit that Russian President Vladimir Putin is gaining from higher oil prices due to the Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. So Ukraine is not sitting idle and just letting developments spin out of control. It's taking these steps, continuing to press Russian forces. And on the battlefield, contrary to the reports and the narrative of about 6 months ago of inevitable Russian victory, it's again really a stalemate. And President Putin is also under tremendous pressure. Recent survey conducted by Russia itself showed mounting disaffection and discontent within Russia on the war. So we see Zelensky taking steps to defend his country, and we also see that Russian President Vladimir Putin is also under pressure. Please.
Mr. Joseph, now that the Ukraine-Russia war has been put in the back burner because of the Iranian war, and you say that President Zelensky and President Putin are taking steps to enhance their militaries and their positions in this battlefield, but to what end? Who's gaining more and who's losing more between the two?
Well, your question is exactly on point, Eric, because neither side is gaining. There's no real path to a victory for either side. It's a stalemate. And then, as you also mentioned correctly, the war in Iran has distracted the United States from its attempted previous mediating role, which leaves even the path of attaining a ceasefire very difficult in this realm. But again, I want to emphasize here that President Zelensky is not just being passive. He has remarkably taken advantage of the situation in Iran, the war that you mentioned that the U.S. is currently engaged in with Iran, now in a ceasefire, to actively support the Gulf states in their defense against Iranian drones. So with its own very impressive technological advances, Iran has managed to devise low cost, and that's so important to emphasize, even lower cost than much lower cost than the Iranian Shahid version, which it has supplied in the amount of tens of thousands to Russia to kill Ukrainian civilians. That is Iran helping Russia kill Ukrainian citizens. In response, now, Ukraine is providing that technological know-how and its prototypes to Gulf states to defend against the Iranian drone threat. So, and this has wider implications because Ukraine is building a relationship apart from the United States, its own independent relationship with the Gulf states, who of course, have loads of funds and financial support that is crucial for Ukraine. And Ukraine, of course, continues to advance its relationship with European states who show no backing off of their determination to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression. Please.
Mr. Joseph, finally and very quickly, we heard what Trump said when he was asked by a reporter, what is the timeline of these wars ending? And he gave a very sinister and quite controversial feedback. He said that the timeline to end the Iranian war and the Ukraine-Russia war will be the same.
Yes, we can't put too much stock on any individual remark by President Trump. Eric, you know that. What we do know, the reality is that the U.S. has a naval blockade which is working. And that's very important for your viewers to know, that it is inflicting intense pain on Iran. This countermeasure to the Iranian illegal under international law shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. And so the blockade is working. It's creating pressure on Iran. And now we are in what people are calling a test of wills to see which side can endure the pain more. The higher energy prices globally, of course, doesn't affect the United States as much, but globally has very serious effect, or the internal pressure on Iran from its inability to export oil and the prospect, Eric, this is very important as well.
Okay.
The prospect of having to shut down wells in Iran, which have the prospect of longer-term damage to Iran's economy. Please.
Mr. Edward P. Joseph, it's good to see you. We'll have to end this discussion here. Thank you for talking to us today.
You're welcome.